there, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to Snowpal Software Development and Architecture Podcast. This is podcast number 2 in the Terraform series. If you haven't checked the last one out, I highly recommend you do so because we're going to pick up from where we left off. We published that like a few days ago, so it's there on apple.snowpal.com and spotify.snowpal.com. So you can go, watch that. It's I think it's about an hour and a half, maybe more, maybe a little bit lesser. And we got started with Terraform. We installed the CLI and did a number of things. So we've made some progress. We're going to pick up literally from where we left off in that previous conversation in that podcast. So without further ado, let's jump right in. I'm going to share my screen here. Give me a second. Okay. Yep. Hopefully, you can actually see my screen. Okay. Let's. We are on the. I'm trying to recall where we exactly were, but I know by way of recap, we had talked about the TF state files, the backup file, the variables, and then we looked at Main.tf, the Terraform file as well. So again, I'm not going to go into what we already discussed, and it's been a few days, so I don't exactly, to be honest, remember because I've done other podcasts in the meantime. But I know where we left off. We created this file, went through some examples, talked about providers and resources, looked up some documentation, and then got things working to the point where I think we started with, if I go to localhost 8000, we have Nginx running, like we are Terraform, right? So I think that's a good place for us to continue here. So let's say the next step, it says is create a Docker container, create a container named HashiCorp learn using the Nginx image from Docker Hub, yada, 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 and publish that to your localhost 8080. You will import this container in this tutorial. So let's actually copy this command. Let me also open up Sublime just so we can look at those commands as we go. Okay. It says Docker run, HashiCorp learn, detach, and publish Nginx latest. Okay, let's just go run this command here. Okay. So we see that it shows, I should have actually shown you Docker before I ran that command, but that's all right. I think let's go here. Nginx latest. Trying to think. See, this is the one that was just created, this container. And then we had these other two from the previous podcast. So this one is actually local. It's related to the API gateway work we do at Snowpal. Ignore that last one. But this yet another name is the one that we had actually created last. Let's see, grab yet. Maybe it was in a different. Yep. Right, so we had basically passed the container name as yet another name and replaced it, and that container name, if you notice in the main.tf file, we actually use a variable container name, and also so we used this variable substitution, but we also saw that we can actually override that by doing this terraform apply essentially, right? Okay, with that said, so we ran, we have this pointing to, as it says here, publish that containers port to your local, to your host system's port 8080. So you're mapping it to 8080. Oh, actually, it says run Docker. I just ran it. I didn't go through these steps here. I was just curious to see whether it was running, but they actually asked us to do it. And I guess we can filter this as well. Right, if we didn't, I mean, you can, we could have done this as well. Grep -i HashiCorp right? It's going to give you the same thing, but obviously the Docker command itself has a filter, so it's cleaner to actually use that. Okay, now let's visit 8080 on our browser, and we see that Nginx, it's running. Earlier, if you remember, we went to 8000. 8080 would not have worked, but now 8080 works as well because of that mapping. Okay, so maybe I should make this the. Okay, let me make sure it's actually recording. It is. Okay, it says now clone the example repository for this tutorial. Let's look at the example repository. Learn Terraform. Okay, let's do this. This is the Salesforce. This is from the Salesforce podcast from a couple of weeks ago. If you're interested in that, you should definitely check that out as well. Podcast Salesforce. I guess I don't have one for. It's under platform engineering. Terraform. Okay, I'm going to clone it right here. And then let's use VS Code to open it. Podcast under that is not the one we just. Terraform import. Doing this on my laptop, so the windows are not as wide as it can be. Okay. Yeah. Did we get the right one? Yep, Docker TF. Oh, actually, I had. That's fine. We have multiple VS Code editors here. Okay, learn what Terraform import is and how to use it. Terraform supports bringing your existing infrastructure under its management. By importing resources into Terraform, you can consistently manage your infrastructure using a common workflow. Okay, so essentially this is bringing your existing infrastructure under the management of Terraform. So they have support for, it stores information about your infrastructure in a state file. And I guess there is a Terraform import command. Okay, let's see what the tutorial says we should do. Create a Docker container. We did that. Actually, let me let's go back here to the second window. Initialize your workspace. Let's see. This is 2. Right, we did a git clone. I'm just thinking aloud here. As you've probably seen from other podcasts, I hit record and then we go through the learning process together, right? It's not, I'm not preparing for this to come here. The idea behind these podcasts, these hands-on podcasts, and picking areas that are outside the realm of what we are currently using at Snowpal is to sort of explore other products and technologies that are very relevant to what we do at Snowpal. In many cases, in some cases, I should say, not all the cases, because for instance, we don't have any dependency at this point on Salesforce, but I did a series of podcasts on Salesforce as well. But Terraform is something that we are obviously, not obviously, but we are interested in. Right now, we aren't using it. But there is, as we, as our deployment becomes more complex, as our product suite grows, we are at 8 APIs right now. It's just going to keep increasing in this year in 2024. So we want more automated ways of configuration, uh, uh, config-based ways of to doing our deployments and managing our infrastructure. So Terraform is actually something of direct interest in that sense. Okay. So let's say it talks about these three files: Docker.tf, Main.tf, and Terraform.tf. Let's look at each of them. Main, it's got a single provider, a Docker provider. Okay, the next one is Docker.tf. That's empty at this point. It's just a placeholder, looks like. And then there is a Terraform file. So .tf, I presume stood for Terraform, but there is also a Terraform.tf file. Trying to understand the difference between the main.tf and Terraform.tf. Maybe main is, I don't know. Before I speculate, let's look at it. Um, Required providers under Terraform. It is uncommon this block to use Terraform Cloud for this tutorial. I don't want to make any changes till we go through these steps here. Okay, Terraform init. Let's do that first. Okay, Terraform has been successfully initialized, installing HashiCorp AWS using previously installed Docker. And then if you looked at the file itself, yep, so it says version at least 3.0.2. It says it's made some changes. The provider dependency selections recorded in the doc lock HCL file. Review those changes. Okay, I have no idea what that file is, but let's look at this one here. Okay, it said it made some changes. I wish we had looked. Okay, what is the previous version of this HCL file? Are there any changes? I don't think so. That looks the same. Okay, what does this say? Okay, try Terraform plan to see any changes that are required for your infrastructure. Let's capture some of the commands we're running here. Init, plan, and Docker PS. We also ran Docker PS with a filter, so I'm just going to copy that. Terraform to podcast. Okay. Let's change this to shell. Okay. Let's see what happened here. Refreshing state. Terraform uses selected providers to generate the execution plan. I don't know what all of this means. Not just as yet. Terraform will perform the following actions. App server will be created. Resource apps, AWS instance, and app server. Okay. Docker container nginx must be replaced. Resource Docker container nginx. Okay. Hang on, did I run this? Oh, I think I ran it from the wrong place. I did not. I intended to run it from import, but I don't believe I did that. Let's do a Terraform init. Okay, then let's do I'm trying to see. Okay, there is a change here. So we see that after I ran Terraform, I was just in the wrong directory. My apologies. Okay, so it added one more entry to this hash. And now let's do a Terraform plan. No changes, it matches the config, blah, 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 found no differences. Whereas in the other case, I think I was running it from a different directory. Okay. Let's go back here. We have done all of this. Now it says define import block. Configuration driven import relies on the import block, which has two required arguments, ID and two. IDs is provider specific identifier, and two is that identifier Terraform will give the resource in state. Okay, before we read and understand this, let's just keep going. Run the following command, return the full container ID of the, let's see, the container. Yep, so this is the partial ID, as you can see here, A2B6C, and this is the complete ID. So it says it does a Docker inspect, and then it's looking for, let's run it without. Yep, so you at least need one argument, which is basically we provide HashiCorp learn from here. But what if I do yet another name? Right, so it's the ID, it's the complete ID. I just want to show it to you here. This is the first part, and then you have the complete ID. So what we did earlier was got the complete ID for the HashiCorp learn container. It says open docker.tf and define an import block to guide the import operation. So replace full container ID with the container ID from the Docker inspect. Okay, let's go here. And now instead of full container ID, we can use this. Okay. I presume we can do variable substitution here as well. I'm pretty certain, right? If we were to do variable substitution, it would look much like, I believe, Docker container variables. Right, so we have a variable called container name here, and the way we use this variable in Main.tf was, I think it was var.container name. We can try that. I'm pretty sure we can do something like that here, but for now we'll just keep it simple. So we added the container ID. It says the identifier used for the ID argument in import block is resource specific. You can find the resource ID, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Generate configuration. When importing a resource, you must both bring the resource into your state file and define a corresponding resource block. Although you can manually define the resource yourself, config and import can generate. Let's get through this. I want to read this again. When importing a resource, you must bring the resource into your state file and define a corresponding resource block for it in the configuration. Okay, we'll see what that turns out to be. Let's run. It says run the Terraform plan command. Use it with the generate config flag to generate configuration for the container you will import. Okay, what is generated dot? Okay, that is the config out. Okay, we're gonna go here. I'm gonna run this. I suspect it generated a new file. Yep, it did. It's got the resource Docker container. So going back here, that's our provider. And then we're saying import this container with that ID to Docker container.web. So to Docker container.web, Docker container. And I think in the previous podcast I had just thought my question aloud, where I was saying, why should these? Why I was wondering why the syntax is this way as opposed to it being a dot. But it looks like there are references to it with a dot as well outside of that file. So Docker container.web, and all of this is. Let's go with the defaults. HashiCorp learn. Hostname 3C6C. Wasn't that the container? Yeah, that was the container ID. the partial container ID. Okay. External port is 8080, internal port is 80. And we saw that we could go to the external port, where Nginx was actually running. Okay. So I think so far, so good. Let's actually read. Is generated the configuration, return it to generator.tf. Please review it and edit as necessary. You didn't use the dash option to save this plan. So Terraform can't guarantee to take exactly these actions if you run Terraform apply now. So could we use a dash out? I wonder what it requires. Terraform generated file already exists. Terraform can only write generated config into a new file. Either choose a different location, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we'll have to understand that. It says you didn't use the dash out option to save this plan. So I was trying to save it when I had a typo there. But that's not what it's failed to power. It needs an argument. Terraform plan help. Okay, write a plan file to the given path dash out equals. So what did let me put it up here. That doesn't look right, but I'm just gonna. Yeah, it just. It's not. I'm just trying to get rid of that file. Oh boy. How do I? Let's go to podcast, platform engineering, Terraform import, open with. Let's do. Yep, that's. I think I ran the command wrong. My apologies. Okay, I was trying to get rid of removed here, but since there's a dash, I don't know. I tried to put that in double quotes, but that didn't seem to do the trick. Maybe I would have had to escape it or something. Anyways, let's try. This command was wrong. Maybe it says it already exists. I'm going to ignore that message that, where. Oh, wait, hang on. Let's remove the generator.tf. Let me run the previous command. Okay. I think there was a conflict because the file was generated. Now I have something called something. I wish I had named that better. Let's see. What does something have? Okay, what is the file type? Oh, it's a zip archive. Okay. Let's go back here. Downloads. Not downloads, sorry. Podcast, platform engineering. I should just leave this open. Okay. Maybe I'll rename it to oops. Okay, I just renamed it as zip. So it's generating a zip file. And then let's see what these look like here. Now that I could have just unzipped it right here. That's all right. Let me go to something. Let's do a file. Okay, cat tf plan. Tf state. So these three files, plan, state, and the backup, they look quite similar, if you notice, to what we had done earlier in the previous podcast. Land Docker container. There's tf state, there's backup, and then there's a main.tf. So this one, the tf state and tf state previous is probably the backup, and the tf plan. Yeah, so I guess the way I'm understanding this is, let's go back here. If we needed to do a Terraform apply, as the message here told us rather clearly, save the plan to something to perform exactly these actions, run the following commands. So earlier we did not provide that dash out. Now we've actually done that. You know what? I'm just going to remove these some things. Okay. And then even remove the something.zip. Okay. And even remove the generated. And then we'll just go with the command without the dash out. I'm going to remove the dash out here. Okay. We didn't use it to save the plan, so it doesn't guarantee that we can, if you run Terraform apply, but we're going to ignore that. Generated.tf looks fine. And then we're just going to go back to this tutorial here. Okay. I'm just going to skip through the documentation on this part. I think we understand this. Notice that Terraform plans to replace the container after import due to the default value of the env param returned by the provider. We'll fix this in the next section. Okay, what is the env param that they're referring to? Okay. Open TF review. Notice that it's set to null. No, open the Docker container resource schema for the env param. The provider expects this param type to be a set of strings. Change the values to an empty set using, what is this Docker container resource schema? Okay, it says environment variables are set in the form of key value pairs. Okay, so instead of it being null, it says it needs to actually be this way. Okay, before we do that, I know we ran a couple of commands here. I forgot to save. Let's call it output.zip because it was a zip file. Okay, we'll go back. We can close this one. Okay, we need to now replace that env with an empty list. Okay, that's done. And I think we explained why it was set to null. Plans replace the container after import. Okay. The container resource requires the image and name arguments, so you must define them in your config. Recall that you specified a port mapping. Yes, we do. Image is 3 dots and then the name and then a port as well. Okay. Prune the generated config to contain only the necessary arguments you identified. So it says, I guess the rest of what's there in generated doesn't mean it's not needed at all. So we only need env image name and ports. Okay. I'm gonna delete. I know what the three dots means for the image. Um, Run Terraform. I'm trying to think what the Terraform image three dots. Oh, hang on. I think I know what that is. Okay, where did we go to the previous documentation? I think I should have. Sometimes it's convenient to keep a few too many tabs open, even if it's painful. Image. Is it the idea of the image to back this container, the easiest way to get this value is to use the Docker image resource as shown in the example. Um, so I'm still not certain what these three dots actually refer to. I don't think the documentation called out for that. It says you must define them, but it doesn't call out for it. Okay, run this to verify that it matches our current settings. Docker container.web must be replaced. This will destroy the imported resource. I'm just trying to think if the config did not match the current settings, what is the output we could have expected? Now plans to import the resource and then make changes in place to add the attach, the bridge, the container logs, and this next one, env, the exit code, and a bunch of things, and it's removing a number of other items as well. It says Terraform uses these attributes to create the Docker containers, but Docker does not store them. Since Docker does not track these attributes, Terraform did not include them in the generated configuration. Okay. I'm going to skip through that and let's keep going. When importing a resource, we recommend limiting any destructive changes and making the first operation a no-op. However, Terraform's config driven import lets you import and modify the resource in the same operation, so you can use them to manage your resource right away. Change the port, external port 8081. This will be a destructive change. Okay, let's change it to 8081. I guess we need to do an apply again. Yep. Okay, let's apply the changes. Okay, it's asking you. Oh, it has an error. Unable to inspect error response from daemon on line 5. What is on line 5? Let's see, is it expected to throw an error? No, it's not. So there's something not quite right. Yeah, unable to create container with image. I think I'm supposed to have replaced this. Did I miss an instruction here? Hang on. Remember we were talking about the image being three dots. I don't think there was any instruction to that. The container requires the image arguments, we must define them, but did not actually specify where we were supposed to get that from. Yep, they missed that in the instruction, I have to say. Okay, what does their image look like? SHA56C42. Does it mean, is that the one that comes from Where is that coming from? C42. Let's see, is that the container? Oh, to return the SHA 256 container ID. I think it's the container ID here. So I believe we need to take this, right? We need to take that. Yep, and then we'll replace that empty image, which should not make sense. Okay. Okay, SHA 256. And we put the value. And now we run that exact same command. Non-existent remote object. Okay, we're stuck here. Let's try to find our way out of this. Oh, hang on. It's not running anymore. Okay, let's go back to 514. Okay, now we have this container ID. Let's run 519. Trying to see. This is all commands from the last time around. Okay. Let's take this. Docker inspect. Let's go back here. Hang on, this is the wrong value here. Okay. Okay, Terraform plan. And then do we have it 8081? Okay. Now let's do the apply and see what happens. Okay, one step better. It actually went a little bit further, but yet it says unable to create container with image, error pulling image, pull access denied, may or may not, may require Docker login. Okay, it's still not happy, so okay, I think I'm doing this clearly wrong. After we ran it, when we do a Docker run, we do a Docker run again. Right, so now when I do it, there is that container. So it's running on 8080. Right, okay, so far so good. After that, we did a bunch of things. Let's try to do them again. We went to generated.tf and we changed the environment to an empty string. Okay, we did that part. And then we added this in image. Okay, and then they didn't have the instruction for the actual image value. But we added the image, the name, the port number. Oh, come on. 80. We changed it to 8081. But maybe let's do 8080 first, and then do a Terraform plan. That's because Docker PS. Oh, it's still there. Oh, hang on. Did we have the wrong? Oh God, I think I have the wrong ID this time around. We need to do the inspect and get the complete ID. Okay. Terraform plan. No problem so far. Yep, because now I'm pretty sure that container, if you do a Docker PS, yeah, let's see. Okay, let's figure this out. The documentation is missing a step, is what I can tell. Oh, let's run it again. Okay, Docker run. We got a new container ID. Okay. Hang on, I think it's the wrong ID here. Okay, so the sequence is we actually do a Docker run, we run the container, and then we import that by replacing the ID here. And now let's do a Docker PS. It's still good. And the last Terraform command we ran was Terraform plan. And then we go to generate it. We change this to 81. Let's say we need to apply. It says it's going to replace it. We say yes. And it's supposed to not fail here. 49. It says importing. See, it destroyed it, which is why it's not. And then after destruction is complete, it tries to create it again. Empty image name is not allowed. Okay, does that mean we're supposed to provide new image? Let me try this. Actually, let's call it. Okay, let's go through the sequence again, run it. And then we're going to do a Terraform plan. Oops, hang on. Oh, I think I need to replace this ID. Keep forgetting that. The real world, you'll script all of this, so I think it should be okay. Okay, now we have that. I'm going to go back here, change it. Let's see, is it 8081 or because I forgot to change that. Okay, it's still 8080, right? Okay, that's good. Okay, now we do a Terraform apply. It says it's going to change 8080 to 8081, and it failed again. Unable to create container with image, blah blah blah, because that image. So obviously, if it's empty, it's no good. Oh, hang on. That is an image ID. It says forces replacement. So it's going to actually take this ID. Wonder we have to copy this one here. Okay, now do the apply. Do a yes and keep our fingers. Oh, beautiful. I think that's the step that I was missing. We have to, after you run the Terraform uh, plan, we made the change. So here's the sequence. We run, we make sure we run this Docker run and we do the Terraform plan. When we do that, it actually tells us, generates this. For some reason, I thought it was a container ID, but it's not. It generates this image ID and we need to replace that. And that's what was missing in the instruction. And once we, do that, it actually goes through just fine. So Terraform, let's see if we've captured these commands. No, we kind of have. Okay, at the beginning. Okay, Terraform apply. Just capturing these commands here. Doesn't, I mean, we're doing a bunch of different things, between between the run of these commands. But I think I'm just going to put a dot, dot, dot. So, it's not necessarily in just that sequence. Okay. So now we go back here. Let's say now we should actually try to, let's do a Docker. Yes. Okay, it's still good. It says 8081. So let's check out this port forwarding. I want to do 8081. Lovely. And then let's go to 8080 and see 8080 is still good. 8000 as well. So right now it's actually forwarding to 8081 as well. Because because of the change we just did, the destructive change. Okay, let me close this. Let's go back down here. I think we've done all of this. We're done. This is the last thing we did. It says Terraform replace the container of the new one. Yep, that's what it is, right? The container. So if you do a Docker inspect, 8b something. Let's go back here. Yeah, see, this was the ID of the older container. So that was 05, blah, blah, blah. After we did this, now we notice that this container is actually a new container. It's got a different ID. So that's what they are trying to tell us here. They are basically saying that, am I in the wrong place? Oh, I don't have multiple. Actually, let me close this. That's a duplicate. Okay. It basically says Terraform replace the container with the new one by running Docker PS or visiting. We see that, and then we see the container ID has in fact changed. Right? We notice that the container ID is actually different. Review the contents of your state file by doing Terraform show. Let me actually save this here. So it's 8081, and then it says image ID the ID of the container has been replaced. So we know that it has actually taken effect, right? We can do a Terraform show. Now your config file, the Terraform state and the container are all in sync, and you can use Terraform to manage the Docker container settings and lifecycle. Okay, so that's how far we've gotten. I'm going to just capture this here. So for next time, right, that way we can quickly come here. Right, and we know that's actually where we left off. I don't know, how long have we into this recording? Let me go here. Yeah, I mean, time flies. I didn't realize we're close to an hour. So let's do a quick recap. What did we do today in the second podcast, in this Terraform series. So we are somewhere in the middle here. I don't want to miss that orientation. Okay. It's the location of that. So I just want to go with what we did. A quick recap: we created this Docker container. That's the first thing we did, pointing to port 8080. We ran this Docker PS, ran the filter to check out the container ID. We cloned the Terraform import example repo. We inspected those files quickly, did a Terraform init to initialize the configuration, just to begin working with Terraform. We modified, we got the container ID, modified the import block because we wanted to import the docker.tf was empty in that example repo. We added an import, replaced the container ID with the actual container, the Docker container. And then we ran this command. We ran into a couple of issues with the dash out missing, but we figured that out because it said you couldn't do an apply because you're not saving it to saving that plan. And then we went back, tried both variations. So we ran this command, and after we did this, we updated the generated Terraform file, made the env an empty list, empty array. The image, I guess this was a placeholder saying you need to replace this. That's what I was confused, earlier, saying what the three dots meant. I thought there was maybe some meaning to that notation. Probably just means that you need to replace this. Um, Maybe. We did that. We did a plan, Terraform plan, and then after that we went back. This instruction was missing. Ultimately, we just had to pick the value off of this, right, in the previous run, extract that image ID, put that image ID here, and after that we changed the port number as well and did a Terraform apply, and then things just work. We're able to hit port 8081 at this point. We do a Terraform show. We see that that is the very last command that we actually ran. So let me run it again. Right, we see that's 8081. We saw that the container ID was replaced. The Docker container was replaced by Terraform, and that's how far we have gotten. And I think that's a good place to pause. Let me go back to a few too many windows open. My apologies. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, cool. So that's basically it for this the second podcast. We are moving along. Again, this is podcast number 2 in this Terraform series. Definitely check out the first one before you watch this, so you get context and you can follow through. As you can see, we are literally learning as we are going through the Terraform documentation. We're not necessarily reading the documentation, running the commands, making some assumptions, doing a bit of speculation. But ultimately, at the end of the 50 minutes here, we know a bit more about these commands, and then the commands we looked at were, I'll add them to the podcast. You can take a look at that. We did a Docker run, a Docker PS with a filter, Terraform init, plan with a few different flag combinations, did Terraform apply, and then a show, and we did some modifications to the config files to the example repo that we picked up. So I think we're chugging along. I feel like a little bit more than we did at the start of this podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. So we'll pick up in the third podcast in the series from where we're leaving off today. I made a quick note so it's easy to remember where we left off. Before I end the podcast, if you are building web, mobile apps, or server-side solutions, spend your time, energy, your team's time, energy, money, and focus, and all of those nice things on your core customer problems. Use our APIs, our SaaS products, to actually power your backend systems. We have a number of APIs at Snowpal. You can go to SaaS, .snowpal.com to check that out. I'll include the other links as well in this podcast, so you can look them up. That way, you can either use our products by pay per use, like pay per request, or purchase a monthly plan, whatever works best for you. Or you can also license, buy commercial licenses and run our solutions in your own infrastructure and make it part of your DevOps or platform engineering processes, right? That's entirely up to you. We are very flexible. Our engineering, our platform, our design, our architecture is super flexible as well. So the idea is literally to help you go to market sooner, shorten your time to market so you can get your solutions in the hands of your customers as quickly as possible. With that said, I'm going to call it done with this podcast. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.